your view po, what could FALAW's role be in those issues or that you have discussed, right?
Okay, so basically, so we are diplomats,
Mm-hmm.
but you can be diplomats of the diplomats, meaning we see you as essentially at the front end, the spear tip of
Mm-hmm.
our community support, meaning you could assist us in being a force multiplier, but also being able, you would have the expertise of under, deeply understanding Australian and Victoria law
Mm-hmm.
and be able to communicate that to,
Mm-hmm.
well, our client base, but
Mm-hmm.
also help us understand,
Mm-hmm.
since
Mm-hmm.
none of us are barristers or solicitors, although in the past there have been DFA people. But also, well, the agency that is up and front and center on this is the Department of Migrant Workers, but they only have an office in Canberra, so they need the help of the consulate. So,
Mm-hmm.
so among the specific tasks and activities that FALAW can help us with in partnership as front end of community support is to provide clear legal information,
Mm-hmm.
early guidance, particularly on and help navigate trusted pathways
Mm-hmm.
that can help Filipinos understand their rights and also avoid problems. Also, that follow can be a
Mm-hmm.
referral bridge. I mean, to what extent you could tackle? I mean, first you could give general guidance,
Mm-hmm.
but if it comes a time where you actually need to engage a lawyer, you could help refer
Mm-hmm.
either among your own members or you could guide them to find actual reputable
Mm-hmm.
lawyers. I mean, sorry, I think you are actually, but I mean, with either within FALAW or
Or-
other practitioners,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, help direct to support services and welfare organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's a lot of scams, a lot of exploitation, and sadly, unscrupulous agents
Mm-hmm.
that you have to help us shield against with
Mm-hmm.
our community. And of course, like what we're doing now, there's outreach through either online, but or also face to face.
Mm-hmm.
These forums, like this online forum, podcasts, like we're doing now, but also meeting with the community. And we all should encourage that Filipinos avail themselves of what the Australian and Victoria and city community authorities provide, and do it early before the it's like medical conditions
Before it
uh,
escalates. Yeah.
before it escalates. So to sum up, FALAW's greatest contributions lies in empowerment,
Mm-hmm.
education, and referral, credible referrals.
Mm-hmm.
So as a partner of the
Mm-hmm.
consulate,
Apart from the international student issue po, migration is a big issue also po
yes.
regarding in the Filipino Australian community, where Filipinos account to the fifth largest migrant community in Australia. So what are the significant legal issues po you can see with migration and the overall po regarding that issue?
Well, actually, when I outlined the challenges, that would also include,
Mm.
well, actually, core are actually migrants, because again, I guess those who have become citizens or born here, they have
Mm.
significantly fewer problems. They still have challenges, but
Mhm.
if particularly if they're still Philippine citizens, is again, like I'll just outline again, workplace
Ay.
vulnerability
Mhm.
and the welfare risks,
Mhm.
both students
Mhm.
and workers,
Mhm.
professionals, still family violence,
Mhm.
whether with their partners here or those that came with them to the Philippines. So
Mhm.
sadly, it's not only, let's say, victimization is Australian to Filipino, but Filipino to Filipino,
Mhm.
which is very sad, but it
Mhm.
does happen.
Mhm.
Okay, dealing with immigration and some serious cases, detention
Mhm.
and expulsion, whatever.
Mhm.
And then, of course, illness, death, natural causes or by accident or even
Mhm.
tragically
Mhm.
through crime, through violence.
Mhm.
So pretty much you have parallel challenges with both my students and non-students.
Could you
Is
share us po about how to promote your thoughts in promoting Filipino professional skill potential in Australia and also expanding Filipino Australian academic engagements, not just with the existing Filipino Australian Forum in La Trobe, but also potentially in other universities such as UniMelb. Yeah.
Okay, glad you asked. Well, just first, you mentioned the Philippine Studies program, which is housed at La Trobe, because the Philippines government, and
Mhm.
with the leadership and patronage of Senator Lauren Legarda
Mm, mm,
and our Office of DFA, Office of Cultural Diplomacy, now we have actually given funding to universities around the world to help run their Philippine Studies programs. But
mhm,
La Trobe was chosen as the first Australian university, and so far it's the only. But I think ANU is
mm,
bidding, although they've also done their program before. They have, so we have the Philippine Australia Forum,
mhm,
um, but we need to do more. But to
mm,
look at again your immediate questions about how do we boost professionals and deepen university links. So first on the professionals is that prior to my posting here, so very gratified to see that basically our contribution to the world and we're valued is actually as professionals and what
mhm,
we call in Australia tradies,
mhm,
both professionals and skilled workers. And in countries like the Middle East, well, actually even here and like Singapore, Hong Kong, you have strong representation from the accredited professional bodies, those
mhm,
that have particularly who are registered and recognized and examined by the Philippine PRC, Professional Regulatory Commission.
mhm,
So you have the mechanical engineers, for example, of course, nurses and architects and the span of engineers. But the thing is, a challenge has been is how, to what extent and where are Philippine professional, trade, and educational credentials recognized?
mm,
Well, let's take the case of, let's say that, okay, now going to the legal
mhm,
profession.
mhm,
So maybe you guys would be better answer. Well, what if you are a bona fide law graduate and
mhm,
practitioner in the Philippines, if you want to
mhm,
practice here?
mhm,
So my understanding is you still would have to take the bar exam in the individual state. So the question is, does your Philippine legal education suffice? So it's
mhm,
assessed, but normally I think most end up taking additional courses, additional subjects.
mhm,
So at least, but I think because we follow mixed common law and civil law system, um, but not completely. So
mhm.
there's, I think, the what we call the priestly 11 subjects
Yes, po. Mhm,
that have to be all mastered. It's a similar situation in the US, but I think so far it's only New York and California that allow Philippine law graduates
mhm,
or recognize the degrees, but they are assessed and they will have to end up taking they may have to take up additional subjects. And I think, like for example, in the case of New York, not all schools, I'm not sure, but my impression is not all schools are fully recognized. But obviously, like the UP, University of Philippines, and
mhm,
Ateneo. Right? But
mhm,
anyway, so here, but in the case of engineers, it's a bit trickier. So so I proposed, so seeing how we've been able to well penetrate jurisdictions like the countries in the Middle East and I think Singapore, Hong Kong,
mhm,
but what about Australia? So there are of course many Filipino engineers
mhm,
who are able to practice, and to an extent their credentials are recognized. But we have a range of, let's say, aside from full-blown engineers, we have technicians, we have vocational skill, but are they really recognized? So
mhm.
there's a lot of assessment. But the thing is, we have to wonder why some other countries, who are also developing countries, they're recognized. Ours are not.
Oh,
But I think it's
mm,
because, to a great extent, because they're usually their fellow Commonwealth countries, so very similar education system. But I realized that part of the job of the consulate and the embassies, the diplomatic service,
mm,
is to lobby and to advance us. So I like to say I'm kind of like, well, in Philippines we call it being like if you know Kuya Germs. So Kuya Germs was an impresario. His famous promoter and nurturer of Philippine talent. He has a TV
mm,
show and he promoted
mhm,
um, the 90s and early 2000s generation of Filipino actors and singers through a program called That's Entertainment and other efforts. But I guess the closest thing parallel to what would be known by Australians. I'll be a kind of Simon Cowell. So I decided to put a frame
Mhm.
called Kapisanan ng mga Dalubhasa at Propesyonal. Basically, Kapisanan means guild of Dalubhasa. So Dalubhasa basically means expert, but it's a term that comes closer to describing a tradie or
Mhm.
somebody with vocational skills, and then professionals, professionals.
Mhm.
So, I'm working with the specific professional groups,
Mhm.
and among the things that we're working on is number one is to survey what are the professions or credentials that we want to have recognized that
Mhm.
aren't recognized yet, and to study, well, what are the other countries
Mhm.
whose credentials from other countries are recognized.
Mhm.
And number two, develop a narrative why Philippine credentials, professionals and traders are good, they're competent.
Mhm.
And then third is to then find out what are the exact regulations and laws
Mhm.
that we have to amend in order to allow for greater acceptance and recognition of our credentials. But this would also apply to um, also our educational credentials, our degrees.
Mhm.
Then finally is, especially now looking at the engineers, is that Safeya had made a proposal because in light of the flood control and other challenges, they
Mhm.
wanted to advise the Department of Public Works and Highways,
Mhm.
give technical advice on how to better manage. But I said that is appreciated, but the thing is, there's already a lot of activity already going on at the cabinet, at the department level. Why not look at how we can help review and improve the infrastructure at the local level? So you
Grassroots.
know how, yeah, so like a lot of Filipino community organizations do a lot of humanitarian missions,
Mhm.
medical missions,
Mhm.
support schools in towns and provinces.
Mhm.
So why not bring your engineering community to review the
Mhm.
infrastructure and also bring in your Australian friends to
Mm.
also look for opportunities to invest?
Mm.
So we call that Build Watch.
Mm.
Like it's inspired by other civil society efforts like Congress Watch or Budget Watch. So Build Watch to review our infrastructure. So
Mhm.
I bring in the sort of the political angle, meaning
Mhm.
that we're the go-between with the political leadership,
Mm.
the premier,
Mhm.
the parliamentarians, the
Mhm.
cabinet, the departments at all levels, city, state, and Commonwealth level. But we're looking at you guys to be our sort of legal arm to help
Mhm.
us with the legal aspects of getting better recognition for our professionals and tradies. Now, on overall education cooperation,
Mhm.
we're very privileged to have PACE, the Philippine Australia Committee on Education,
Mhm.
which was among the spearheads. I think some of the members of FALAW are leaders in it, but of course, one of our earlier honorary consuls, Raul Hernandez. So his team is a framework to really trying to boost education cooperation. But similarly, yeah, it's about education exchange and seeing where a whole range of issues, how we can help facilitate partnerships
Mhm.
between and among Australian universities and colleges, and again about Philippine credential recognition, development of joint programs,
Mhm.
again, both on the academic, and vocational level. So I'm also bringing in related projects which I started before.
Mhm.
One is the VAMBA
Mhm.
project, which is the Volunteer Ambassadors Project, which in turn was part of what I had established 11 years ago, the Diplomatic League. So Diplomatic League was started in 2014 when I was Assistant Secretary for UN Affairs at DFA. It
Mhm.
was basically to serve as the Philippine Association of League of students who are majoring in international affairs
Mhm.
or uh,
International relations.
international relations, international studies, and we also included area studies like Asian studies
Mm.
or
Mm.
European studies.
Mm-hmm.
But we expanded it because coming from DFA, not all people who join the DFA have an international relations degree. So
Mm-hmm.
we evolved into being a platform for youth,
Mm-hmm.
and well, youth is a state of mind ultimately. So youth and the public who are interested in pursuing who are studying international relations,
So it's a
or
broad interpretation po of
yes, a
youth.
broader interpretation. So who would be interested in joining DFA?
Mm-hmm.
So we give well, of course, there are actually some uh, institutes and universities that offer a review, like a bar review, but a review for the Foreign Service Officers exam. Oh, a bit of pride is that the Foreign Service Officer exam
Mm-hmm.
has the lowest passing rate of any professional or professionally related exam in the Philippines. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying it's tougher because, yeah, the bar exam is really tough. The
Mm-hmm.
medical board, however, we have a lower passing rate. So I
Mm-hmm.
interpret that how you will.
Mm-hmm.
So then it became a platform to popularize diplomacy
Mm-hmm.
among youth,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not they're studying it in university. And when I went to New Zealand, we made it a platform to introduce Philippine culture, language, and heritage more generally.
Mm-hmm.
So that we developed then a leadership training program called VAMBA, Volunteer Ambassadors,
Mm-hmm.
which in turn became a recognized internship program.
Mm-hmm.
So we're offering it here also, and we've made some headway with some students already. And we'd love to sit down and see how we can offer the VAMBA and Diplomatic League programs. So these are more for, let's say, students and community leaders and volunteers in terms of the VAMBA program. But the more hardcore academic cooperation would be through DACOP, Diplomatic Academic Commercial Community of Practice. So community of practice basically bringing together professionals, academics who are interested in a particular thing. Let's say it's disarmament
Mm-hmm.
or microeconomics. It could be
Mm-hmm.
very narrow, very specific. And
Sectorial.
usually they're
Mm-hmm.
divided along professional or, I mean, sorry, among departmental lines. But we would see that FALAW can be some kind of, it's like a DACO for legal
Yeah.
studies.
Just to clarify po, with the VAMBA, does it only apply for Filipino Australians
Oh
with
no,
Filipino
in fact,
citizens or?
we also had mostly they're Filipinos or ethnic Filipinos,
Mhm.
but we also had some even with Americans,
Oh.
Indonesians,
Mhm.
Africans have joined.
Mhm.
So open to all, and they're all most welcome. So
Mhm.
the idea was to be a Vamba, you have to do, and so that it also qualifies as a recognized internship
Mhm.
in at least Philippine universities. You have to complete 200 hours, but it's online or
Mhm.
independent study or work. So
Mhm.
we give a range of assignments, like for example, make a plan to encourage Victorians to visit, to travel to the Philippines, like tourism promotion.
Mhm.
Or we cover cultural diplomacy. There is a very dynamic, talented Filipina Australian singing talent named Nardia, who's made the Billboard charts in the US,
Oh.
but has yet to actually um, develop her popularity and renown here in Australia and Philippines. So I said, okay, let's promote Nardia through social media.
Mhm.
So we're also very heavy in using social media as
Mhm.
part of your assignments. And then we also ask you to study and review Philippine foreign policy
Mhm.
and to write on it, reflect your thoughts, and also to study and review Philippine Australian diplomatic relations. Ask as course material, look at the podcast of FALAW and write essays or based on the issues that are tackled, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So something we could, and then so we see that VAMBA, I think, could be of interest to, well, students in general, particularly law students, but
Mhm.
also community leaders. Now,
Mhm.
DACOP is more about supporting collaboration among academics.
Mhm.
So actually, it's not really, the emphasis is more on connections between individual
Mhm.
academics and researchers
Mhm.
rather than institutional. So institutional linkages
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
already being, it's already PACE is doing it. It's part of our bread and butter work. Global Victoria is doing it. And whatever the counterpart of the higher educational authorities of federal Australia, and of course the universities themselves. So we're looking again more granular, people to, but more people to people, individual, academic to academic networking. Now, going back to FALAW support, is that we're also have underway establishing a Filipino volunteer corps, meaning we would train volunteers to be all over Victoria who can be a kind of like our sentinels or information points. So normally this kind of system is called by other countries a warden system. But because the needs are more involved, wardens should know, for example, basic first aid, basic firefighting, CPR, and also have rudimentary legal, be familiar with basically legal first aid, so to speak, but they would be more of a referral to FALAW, to us, or to the relevant Australian NGOs or support or government support agencies. So there would be something like what the field would be called barangay tanod or watch person or watchman at the village level. So already we're getting volunteers, but we'll have a common training. And so we would like FALAW to handle a basic legal 101. And perhaps that can be already worked in. So actually our preferred mode is that you do it, or we would review to see if, let me ask you, did you guys do a sort of primer on basic survival laws?
Oh, not yet po.
So maybe something like that we could collaborate on. So that could already be the course material, because we would have volunteers from all over Victoria, and maybe also others interested from elsewhere in Australia. But of course, we're focusing on the 3 states and focus on, of course, a federal law, but also particular laws on states and more relevant to the issues that our people would be confronted with, like again, workplace vulnerability, welfare risk, immigration, family violence, that sort of thing.
Another sort of initiative that you would you want to get your thoughts in is the support for entrepreneurship within the Filipino Australian diaspora. So could you share us more thoughts po about supporting entrepreneurship?
Okay, on that, so we have a number, of course, of very dynamic business entrepreneurship-related groups. In fact, we met with the Australian Philippine Business Council. There is also a multicultural ethnic business grouping which Filipinos lead. How to more holistically support our work. Another initiative is framework is called Philippine Victoria Diplomacy. So that actually what it means is to strengthen linkages between the state of Victoria with Philippine provinces and cities, but also South Australia and Tasmania as well. And we're looking at focusing on specific, we already have lined up particular cities and provinces like Cebu, Palawan, Davao, Bohol, Baguio, Metro Manila to start. Others are welcome. So actually, our diplomacy has 4 thrusts: the political security, economic, cultural, and people to people assistance. So we want to promote relations at that, local to local. Because again, Canberra is handling Australian Philippines in general, so also the Australian Embassy. But we see we can complement efforts from the bottom up. So we're looking at, like for example, with the Cebu, one dimension could be cultural. So we have all these wonderful sinulog anyway. So actually, cultural diplomacy is very robust. But just the other day, we had a humanitarian project. We had a fundraising dinner at Kumbira restaurant, spirited by my good friend Sam Alcordo, is to do fundraising for Cebu, because in light of their recent floods and earthquakes. But also means tying up with the chambers of commerce so we also had a visit spearheaded by Ms. Rain of Iloilo stakeholders and ILO Chamber of Commerce. So what I'm saying is, in support for entrepreneurs, we would like to actually be a bridge to what, and then so the counterpart would be basically global Victoria, and states such as South Australia and Victoria have their own basically what amounts to trade and diplomacy, foreign affairs ministries. So actually they have already a lot of resources. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but to put a Philippine dimension is how entrepreneurs can link up with Victoria, but also look at opportunities at the local level in the Philippines, but already targeting, because normally you go through the Department of Trade and Industry, Department of Trade in Manila, but there's there's already being.
So you want to go grassroots, but like
exactly grassroots and bottom up. So I cannot really say offhand, but there's a lot of entrepreneurship, for example, cultural, like for example the sale of authentic woven products, that sort of thing. But what I'd really like to see is harder investment, IT, AI, drones, whatever. And so we could, in partnership with FALAW, we could put together the stakeholders, and then where FALAW comes in is when deals are ripening. Well, hey, you drop their contracts.
Another interesting part is startups and AI technologies. Would be interesting, especially in Unimel. They have the accelerator program. So
yes, exactly. So
ecosystems for startups would be good, especially if the Philippine consulate would be able to foster a relationship.
Oh yes, exactly. So rather than reinvent the wheel, we'll go to University of Melbourne and precisely look at, and other universities look at their startup and entrepreneurship incubator processes, and then tie them up. But also, again, like with legal assistance, we'd also, or legal referral, we would refer entrepreneurs to like if they come, hey, I'm an entrepreneur, I want to do something. But it's more about already the people who are already in the entrepreneurial mindset would already be in Melbourne, University of Melbourne, or whatever. So our job would be to link up with opportunities to tie up with Philippine counterparts.
Yes.
So part of the business matching, essentially with APBC and other stakeholders.
Thank you for that, po. Moving on po, for a significant issue that the Filipino Australian faces is domestic violence.
Yes.
So could you share us, po, regarding insights from your office and the support services from the PCG Melbourne?
Okay. Well, actually, we have a live case, so to speak. A Filipino had left an abusive relationship, and so one issue was about their housing or accommodation. So, that's the immediate thing. So, as when the case was brought to our attention, we went through our network and found the Filipino party immediate housing. But again, there are a number of Filipino Australian NGOs which provide assistance. So we also act as basically we refer the subject Filipino for assistance, but then we fill in the gaps. Like we do have limited funding. We call it assistance to national fund. We first have to exhaust freely available resources. But if worse comes to shove, we can request Manila. Any funding we need to do, we have to ask Manila. But there is substantive funding. But already so DFA has some money, but a lot is also now on the shoulders of the DMW. So we can also make referral to assistance by we used to call them labor attachés. Now we call them migrant worker officers. So generally, common sense is that immediately they have to get out. So so we find housing. If they haven't liaised with the police as relevant, we would liaise with the police and law enforcement. We would use our good offices, like especially if it's a Filipino versus Filipino dispute, we would try to be like the UN or Switzerland to offer our good offices to be a safe space to mediate. But if things we can't solve it, then we go up and see what Australian services can provide. So yeah, very, very common sense approach. And we're there to basically be a kind of ate or kuya, trying to moderate and to refer. And again, this is where FALAW partnership is important. So we would consult with you with whatever relevant legal issues may be at hand. And you could also help determine that maybe the problem already needs going beyond mediation. But it's almost like medical referral. We're kind of like GPs, but if we have to go to the neurosurgeons or obstetricians, then we could go to exact legal practitioners or other authorities who can help with the problem at hand.
Apart from PCG and FALAW partnership, do you see any other opportunities that FALAW could cooperate or collaborate with other Filipino community groups that you think for this issue?
Oh yeah, well, again, we could give you a whole list of groupings because, but you have to be selective. Well, for example, there's of course FCCVI, and the great thing with FCCVI, well, they're the big umbrella of Filipino community organizations and very well supported by the state and federal governments. And they have now assumed the leadership of the overall FILCA, the Filipino Communities Council of Australia. So I think, but not all organizations are under FILCA, but FILCA covers a wide stretch. So I think we can focus on FILCA, and we could give you the list. Well, we could sit down and we give you the list of the other frontline NGOs which often encounter the challenges of Filipinos.
Another significant issue po in the Filipino community recently over the past year is the Philippine domestic political issues in Australia. So could you share us po your thoughts or PCG's thoughts or the services offered by the PCG regarding certain community groups' concerns about Philippine domestic political issues such as blood control projects, corruption, and drug war?
That's pretty much outside our remit because those issues of concerns are not under the control of DFA. But what we do is that we can bring to the attention of authorities back in the Philippines what are their particular concerns or even suggestions. So there have been times, yes, we've met with community leaders who express concerns, and we listen. We hear, we're an open ear, and we transmit their concerns to DFA headquarters, who in turn will forward the concerns or critiques or recommendations to the concerned authorities. So very much we act as a bridge, but we're not really in the position to, other than reporting what the Philippine government is doing. Otherwise, we are a bridge, a transmittal of their concerns.
I understand po, the limited capacity that the consulate would have in these issues. But what about FALAW's role po about these issues?
If particular issues are of a legal nature, these can be subjects of podcasts or seminars or gatherings where these issues can be discussed. But also, it's maybe to shed light because maybe some members of the concerned public might want to know more about a particular issue, and there's a legal background that has to be understood. Like, for example, let's say it's flood control. Well, what are the legal aspects of flood control? That issue. Then there's also a recurring issue is constitutional reform. Take a look at the Westminster parliamentary form of government. And I have to say, the record speaks for itself. Among the most stable and progressive dynamic countries like Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Ireland have the Westminster parliamentary system. And so discussing what that entails from a legal point of view. And oftentimes there are particular laws which are discussed and debated, like, for example, the proposed divorce law, for example, or the anti-dynasty bill. Again, for us, we other than what are the pronouncements of our president, our Secretary of Foreign Affairs, we cannot weigh in on the issue, but we could definitely support FALAW in holding open fora on this. And then as a constructive way forward, you could compile the thoughts and sentiments and recommendations given, and we duly convey. But I would say that many, of course, strive for improvement and change. The best is the ballot box. So the one very concrete thing we do is we register and hold elections for overseas voting. So another thing that could help is the process, because we've now shifted to internet voting, but many of our kababayan are not so tetchy, so they need familiarization. So that perhaps could be something also. What FALAW could help us with is really voting registration drive. But the other thing that I'm very passionate about is seeing more Filipino Australians get elected into office. Now, we encourage, of course, we cannot endorse a particular party, but in fact, that we've getting invitations and proposals from the major parties, the Liberals, Labor, to hold dialogues and even encourage Filipinos, Australians, to at least be exposed to the options. So balanced, of course. And we have good relationships with the Victoria and other state level members of parliament, the government, the respective premiers, and the federal MPs. So again, I think this is one area where FALAW can be, is to help encourage lawyers, Filipino Australian lawyers, to consider, because we need representation in state and federal parliament, also, of course, at the local level, and also entering the civil service, many of whom have,
or
or
voter
the
literacy.
judiciary, sorry.
Yeah, or voter literacy po.
Yes, exactly. Yes, voter literacy. Both voting for Australian and Philippine elections. Because again, and letting Filipinos know that if they've become Australian citizens, they can reclaim their Philippine citizenship and vote in both elections.
What do you hope for FALAW's role for this year, for this specific year?
We would be setting the groundwork for a very dynamic collaboration on being a team in providing better supports for Filipinos in need, particularly that needs of a legal dimension, their workers' rights, family issues, exploitation, and whatnot, and establishing a basic system of how we can work together, how we could work side by side in fleshing out and explaining the issues. Also in the context of what we call our post-arrival orientation seminar. So we hope this will be offered to even those who've been here for some time, a basically online or multimedia orientation on the ins and outs of Australian and Victoria law and services, both in English and in Filipino. And then establishing this volunteer ambassador, these sort of watchman, scout focal points all around Victoria, at least. But of course, FALAW is national, so are other states. And to provide, but again, the same course material as for the post-arrival orientation seminar, what our volunteer sentinels, guards, watch, would need to know to be able to to offer initial advice and referral.
On a more personal note, how are you finding Melbourne, and what do you look forward to personally and professionally as in your time in Melbourne?
Well, as I said, this is basically my last round of foreign assignment, and I wanted to save the best for last.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, is that it is in our jurisdiction, where Filipinos are the most welcome. And I think the potential of overseas Filipinos, our diaspora, is most maximized here in Melbourne, Victoria, South Australia, and Tasmania. So I want to, so I suspected this before I got here, and I've been proven absolutely correct. And interestingly, it's a bit cheeky that even Australia-wide Filipino Australian entities are based here, like FALAW, like Philippine Times, like PACE, and the leadership for PhilCA is from FCCVI. So this is the best of the best. And so to be worthy of this and to earn my keep, I want to document the best practices, the lessons learned we could share with the rest of our diaspora, as well as our kababayan back in the Philippines. So working with FALAW, we can really capture what is best in the Filipino diaspora because of this very nurturing environment that we have here in Victoria, South Australia, and Tasmania.
Thank you po, Conjen Gary, for your time and sharing your insights with us. And we look forward to working with you with FALAW. And on behalf of FALAW po, thank you for encouraging us to go for season 2 for the FALAW podcast and, foster further Filipino-Australian legal relations. Thank you po.
Okay, thank you din. Maraming salamat po.